Okay, welcome to the panel on open science rewards and evaluation. My name is Shalini Kurapati, and I am an open science fellow at the Politecnico di Torino. And today I'm very excited to present to you this fantastic panel that will talk about the rewards and evaluations related to open science. And we have a brilliant panel coming from Italy, France, Netherlands, and Ireland, presenting various perspectives of researchers, funders, university management, institutions, European policies and infrastructures. And we're going to have a very nice discussion around this very important yet essential topic. A very complex yet important topic. And this program is being organized by Politecnico di Torino and University of Torino. And we are going to have this panel discussion in the format of short presentations and ability for you as research participants to ask questions through the chat. And after the presentations of the panelists, we're going to have the discussions. And it's better to have the questions on the chat so that we won't have too many disturbances of the voices. Thank you very much. And if you would like to tweet about the event, you can use the hashtag. It's marking the Open Access Week of Torino, so it's OAA Week, Week 2020 _ Torino. Please feel free to spread the information. And we are also recording this event, and we will also share the slides. And without further ado, I'm honored to actually introduce our first speaker, who is Professor Federica Cappelluti, who will present her view as the researcher dilemma of open science and rewards. Federica, the floor is yours.
So thank you, Shalini. Welcome to everyone. I'm very, let's say, happy of this, let's say, event. So I'm, just for me, let's say, I'm an associate professor in Politecnico in electronic engineering and an active, let's say, researcher on electronic devices, in particular photovoltaics. But since 1 year and a half, I also, let's say, undertook the role as advisor of director for open science. So that was the first time in Politecnico, let's say, open science was identified as a sort of priority or however important transformation in science that need to be followed and implemented. So we started from a while, but we are trying, let's say, to bring awareness, education, support to researchers. So today, just to tell what we want to focus on is, let's say, the point that from one end with open science, we for sure have many huge benefits to research, because digital tools, if they are organized in the correct way, so according to the FAIR principles, can give us a science which would be an excellent one in a good sense. So it would mean science which is really collaborative, which is transparent in its processes from the beginning to the end, which is reproducible, which is reusable. And so that means really science which is going to make an impact on the advancement of knowledge and society, I would say much farther than what is today just impactful on academics rankings, basically. In particular, I think today we will focus a lot on the point of reproducibility and transparency of research, because this is what we need in order to have research outcomes to be, let's say, scrutinized by the research community as a whole. However, doing this is a very tough job. It's a tough job from the point of view, first of all, of researchers, because we need to acquire new skills. Data curation, software curation, and so on requires a lot of time. It is also a tough job from the institutional point of view, because you need to create new services, new skills in support personnel, and so on. So the question that, let's say, I would pose, Shalini, you can change the slide, that I would pose to the panel just to set the stage is, but do we value this as an institution? So all this effort that we are requiring. The problem, in my view, and is that today, also from a researcher perspective, we actually have a very big mismatch between what we should or we value and what actually we evaluate and reward. So here you have a picture. So it's a sort of climbing, quite difficult to implement a fair science.
Ciao,
But
buongiorno.
today we just, let's say, reward the very, just the top of the mountain, so the publication. And the question, therefore, that we would like to address is how actually we can change this, because we need to educate new researchers and doctors to the, let's say, to the science of the future. And we need to move away from, let's say, an assessment which is mainly based on publications, which is mainly done with quantitative, narrow band, statistically flow when applied to individuals' metrics. We also have to move away from a system which is hyper competitive. So we can ask transparency and collaboration when then researchers perceive secrecy as a sort of a competitive advantage. And by the way, research is done in teams, but we always, let's say, stress just the leadership of being always, let's say, the top one. So the question, therefore, is how, if and how we can change this evaluation system to push forward open science in the sense of this transparent and reproducible science, so a useful one, but also paying some attention to avoiding errors from the past. So in many reports today, you may read about new metrics, for example, coming up, being proposed. So let's not forget that when a metric becomes a target, it stops to be a good metric. And so it requires some, let's say, awareness and some reflection. I don't know with the time, so I would say that I can stop and I can hand over to, let's say, Shalini and Gianluca.
Thank you very much, Federica. That was great. We will move on now to Professor Gianluca Setti, who actually represents the university management in this regard.
Well, thank you, Shalini, for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation, and good morning to everyone. So as reported in the slide, I'm professor also at Politecnico of Torino, but also I have the pleasure to be the rector advisor for research quality evaluation, so which is might be relevant for the topic. Even more relevant is I did quite some volunteer work for the IEEE, that for those of you who are not engineer and may not know, is one of the largest professional organizations around the world with 420,000 members, which is also an important publisher. It published more than 200 publication journals and magazines, and organize every year for over 1,900 conferences. I was editor-in-chief for a few journals, but also the vice president for publication for the entire IEEE in 2013 and 14. And I was involved in trying to establish a correct use of bibliometric indicator for assessing publication and research impact, and see how we can use it in a fair way. So that just avoid that people were using impact factor to evaluate the contribution of the individual researchers, which was also horrible. And recently I got interested in, say, the way in which we call open science there, which is focusing on research reproducibility in order to provide a framework to make it easy for the IEEE authors There was a workshop. In the hyperlink, there is is linked the web page where you can find the report for the jointly organized IEEE and NSF workshop, just so that from bringing up the perspective from the founders and the publisher in order to try to create an environment which can foster research reproducibility. In particular, there was a discussion about the possible definition of badging for paper. I will comment on further on. Also was representing IEEE in 2 workshops at the National Academy of Engineering in the US. In particular, one was a call for stakeholder input for a report on reproducibility and replicability in science, which is linked also in the slide that you may want to download because it's quite interesting. Sorry, it has a lot of the definition and even suggestions, both to funders, institution, and professional organization, how to promote reproducibility. If you want to move on the slide, Shalini. So the advantage on open science, as Federica commented very well, are kind of clear. Because if we make available everything in addition to the description of the work that we do to other researchers, others may build on the research we do, therefore advance science in a faster way. But from the perspective of a technical school as Politecnico, is important also that we make sure that practitioners may actually use the work that we as researchers are putting out there, so that they can develop product faster and therefore increase the interaction between industry and the school. And from a perspective of the user, I see even the fact that as a reader, having something which I can use in addition to read may actually help me in reducing the quantity of noise, because there are certainly too much content which is produced out there, and everything which is reproducible is going to be certainly more attractive. So what can we do to promote this? So in my view, what we really need, but I don't think it's only my view, is that we need a deep culture shift, which will involve all stakeholders, ranging from institution to publisher to a founding agency. In fact, as Federica clearly highlighted already, a well-prepared contribution, in addition to the work that I need to put on to do my research activity, to write the paper, it requires a lot of effort in order to prepare all the artifacts that I need to attach to make the work reproducible. So in order to, and this is totally in opposition with the publisher parish pressure that each academic is feeling more and more. So first of all, we need to reduce the metric pressure, make sure that, yes, it's important to have data considering the metrics for what is the productivity of institutions. That's important to have, but this must not be a must. So nowadays, especially in Italy, we have threshold which we need to pass mandatorily, and that's something which is pretty horrible. I think that having this data is important, but should not be a must. And the other point is that the evaluation of the artifact must clearly be marked as a primary research product. So I must be evaluated positively if I produce a data set and not necessarily a paper attached to it, because this might be as important as developing a new algorithm, which I can describe in a paper. And this is important to have, especially for things that are important for the life of people, like tenure, hiring, or promotion events. Also, we need to make sure that those that are producing this artifact are rewarded in some way. So one of the easy things that publishers are actively, I know that there is an effort at the ACM, there is an effort at the IEEE to badge the paper depending on the level of reproducibility that the work presented there is going to have, like from the value of the paper as the artifact to the value that the paper as the artifact works and they can be reused in a nice way. This will require a lot of effort. It's not easy to implement, but at least will give more visibility to the people that are going to along the path of making their result reproducible. Other way are obviously simple award. There might be much other ways which will involve obviously even the funders, which may apply not only the stick as it's easy to do that to require that you need to have data, but also carrots might be involved, and I think it's also advisable. From the perspective of the publisher, it's very important that everyone is providing a framework to make the fact that the authors can upload their artifacts as easy as possible. I'm already putting a lot of effort to create them. I don't want to struggle even to make sure that I need that it is actually quite difficult to put my material out there. And I don't know how I'm doing with time, but I think I can stop here.
Thank you very much.
And give the token to Shalini.
Thank you so much, Gianluca. That was also very good that an actively practicing researcher and who has an ear to the institution has this idea. That's fantastic. Now, this is a bit more on the top-down side, what we can do from the institutions. And now the next speaker, Yasemin, is actually going to talk a bit more on the bottom-up side of the rewards. Yasemin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for organizing this event. This is really very, very important. I believe already the previous speakers, their nice speeches made it clear why we need a change in the rewards and recognition, and indeed why we need a cultural change. And this is actually also what TU Delft has been doing by hiring data stewards to help with that cultural change. So I work as a data steward at TU Delft since 2018, and before that I did my research in molecular genetics. And I would like to briefly mention that Shalini was also one of our colleagues back then. It was really nice to have her on our team. And briefly, what does data stewards do? So at TU Delft, every faculty has one, and we are first point of contact for any research data related questions. And we support, train, and inspire researchers to apply good practices in research data management, reproducible research, open science, research, and research integrity. And one very important point is that we act as consultants and not as police. I also served previously as a community manager of the TU Delft Data Champions, and again, Shalini was actually our first community manager. And this is a bottom-up community, and these are researchers who are already aware of the importance of all this, and they are applying it in their practice, or they are quite interested in this, and they become local advocates. It started first as a data champion community, but once you are practicing open science, it doesn't just end with open data or fair data. Then you also start showing interest or practicing other branches of open science. And that's exactly what happens in TU Delft. So they were quite interested in other practices such as open source software, even open hardware. And this is the reason why the community got rebranded to Open Science Community Delft at the moment. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so now the Open Science Community Delft is part of the network of international open science communities, which initially started in Netherlands. And in Netherlands, almost every Dutch university has a community, open science community, but it grew from there. So that's how it became an international network. So for instance, now there are also communities in Sweden and Galway. All these communities have a shared code of conduct and guiding principles, and the community is open actually to anyone interested. So they don't have to be researchers. They also don't have to be experts in open science. They could be just starting and they just want to learn how to do it. So it's open to anyone who wants to participate. And also it's an international network, so maybe you also want to participate in it. And what are the benefits then? So first of all, it is network building. So this way the community members get a chance to meet people who think alike and who are also interested in open science. And this way they can also learn new skills from each other, they can work together, they can practice new skills. We also have a strategic plan for open science, and they can inform the development of this program. And they have been also actually quite involved with our policies related to, we currently have a research data policy, and we have involved these community members, and we are also developing a software policy with a strong focus on open source software, and they are again involved in that as well. So this way we try to make sure that they are actually part of this policy developments. And we also try to make sure that they get increased impact and visibility for their efforts and practicing open science. So for that, for instance, with the events, we always ask them to showcase their work. And we have been also sharing what they are doing in their local communities. And now they are getting actually quite some respect, and they are known in their departments, in their faculties, to be the open science advocates, and they are becoming the go-to persons. And we also have actually within the TDOT Open Science program a dedicated team, dedicated project on rewards and recognition. And it will be also really nice to work with the community members on this, so that we can more properly address and give them proper recognition. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yasemin, for giving this co-creation perspective, and also, you know, the researchers being involved in creating their own rewards and evaluation systems. So that was very holistic. Thank you. And the next speaker would actually you know, impact a lot of researchers' projects and how she represents the funders, and she all the way from Ireland, Dr. Annalisa Montesanti. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks very much for inviting me. Yeah, no, it's a very important discussion, and just as an introduction, in a way, everybody is working away, and it's a slow process, but we will get there. So my name is Annalisa Montesanti. I am Italian, and I am a scientist by training. So I have a PhD in cancer biology from Oxford, and I've been working in Italy for many years, and then in England and in Dublin as well. And then I moved to the Health Research Board, which is the main funder in Ireland, funding health research board, health research. And since 2005, so it was a big switch. And since the last 5 years in particular, I've been leading a portfolio of health research careers. So it's very much about how to build capacity across different career stages, from undergraduate, summer studentship to PhD, postdoc, independence, and leadership. And so I created a coherent framework to guide me through this process, and there were some important guiding principles that guided me, and two of these were very much about research assessment and open research, which is very similar to, of course, open science. So within this portfolio, apart the different instruments to fund researchers and the research to conduct, I've been also leading the implementation of the DORA principle in all these schemes, and now we're trying to kind of expand to other schemes that are probably more project and program based. And also with another colleague, very much bottom up, we've been co-leading the implementation of fair data management and stewardship practices in all the HRB fund research. We have an HRB open research platform, which is an open publishing as well, which is very similar to what people probably know from Wellcome, the Gates Foundation. We were actually the first public funders to have such a platform. So it's very much to move towards an open research environment and transparency and reproducibility. So next slide, please. I was moving the slide. So in terms of qualitative assessments, I'm going to describe, because other people are talking probably about fair data management and other practices, I'm going to describe a bit more about the DORA declaration. So we signed this San Francisco Declaration for Research Assessment in 2018 when we launched the Open Research, the HRB Open Research Platform. And but I have started implementing the principles since 2016. I've been reading many other reports like the Leiden and Manifesto and a few others. So what we've been doing is trying to ask questions to researcher in the application form in a way that we can capture more holistically their track record and their impact into the research field they have been working on and generally in knowledge contribution. So first of all, HRB very much fund research as a potential to have impact on policy and clinical practice and health policy. So in addition to research article, we have openly welcome people to add other research output like data production, research material, databases, and also national international report that wouldn't be published it wouldn't be the typical article. It could be knowledge translation. So the impact factor has never really factored too much in the HRB, but now we emphasize very much that we don't want people to really list the impact factor when they list their publication or their output list. So in all these career development awards from PhD to leadership, we ask applicant a more narrative-based CV, so we can call probably a bio sketch, which many funders are doing now as well. So it's very much about addressing their contribution to knowledge. So it's a track record in knowledge, so basically the track record in funding, for example, how many funding, grant or fellowship they got, and also contribution to the track record in terms of publication and other output production, their contribution to training and career development of other researchers, which very often is a key contribution that many academics do, and also the wider research community, the contribution to a wider research community and society. So what I call synergistic activity. This could be like membership to committee, their contribution to peer review, their knowledge translation contribution, or open science, collaborative activity, collaborative thinking. So something that really summarize additional activity they do instead of just listing the publications. And what is important is also to change the mindset of the reviewers, because the reviewers are academics, so the peer reviewers and the panel reviewers that then make the final decision on funding. They're academics, and so they come from the same kind of platform where the publication and the impact factor as a weight. So we need to guide them, and we're doing this by referencing DORA and what HRB has been doing with DORA in all our guidance. We emphasize that also at the debriefing at the panel meeting, and it's very much to basically focus on the content, the quality, and the impact or influence that the research that has been conducted by the researchers has. We point them that they have to consider the active research experience of researcher, because we have to take in consideration career breaks for maternity or paternity leave, for change of disciplines and so on. And then we are also tackling gender and unconscious bias in review panels. And that's very important as well, because as we know, it's very often unconscious and has to be tackled in a different way. And we provide some trainings through video, and we tackle quite actively during the panel meeting, for example, if something is not going according to plan. So that's everything for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annalisa. That was very very useful to get a funder's perspective on the solutions that they are implementing actively to fund research proposals. And so far we've heard about the engineering perspective and funder's perspective from the medical domain. And now we're going to hear more about the humanities side. We have a wonderful historian, Dr. Francesco Beretta, dialing in from France. Please, Francesco. We would love to hear your social sciences perspective on the evaluation system.
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity of presenting our research here. And as you say, it's true, listening to the contributors to the panel, I see I am in a total different perspective. I am the one you are evaluating from your point of view. And this is also an issue that I have myself, generally speaking. You will see why. Because I am a trained historian, early modern intellectual history. I worked a long time on Galileo's trial and the Inquisition, Roman Inquisition. And then I had a position in 2005 in Lyon at Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique, and there started really my digital history development. And I will speak about 4 topics in my talk. They are not written down, but I will illustrate this with the 2 slides. One thing is the new skills. I'll come back later, but I tell the 4 points. New skills, you need new skills. You need collaboration. You need digital infrastructure, and you need rewarding for building all this, or for doing this at this moment in history at least. So in 2008, we started a project that you see on the slide on the left, where we try to bring historians to work online, not produce bad done databases locally, but try to have best practices to share data online, first at the level of the lab that you see, and then more generally. And this needs, of course, building infrastructure, and this needs, of course, semantics. So it needs a lot of semantic engineering. So we built all this virtual research environment. You have a schema of that. And as you see, I do not present myself. I present the work of a team, because all this vision, all this kind of new way of working in history, you cannot have if you do not have collaboration, if you do not have a community, if you do not have a team. It's impossible to realize this, as in older times, alone for yourself. And now we are moving to 2 different worlds. The one is of a private company, which is developing geohistory, which is a new virtual research environment with all this issue of having long-lasting public funding for projects. Probably in the natural sciences is different, but for humanities, it's very difficult after you had 3 years, 6 years grant for infrastructure to keep it ongoing without going private. So this is one big issue, how to keep infrastructure running. And the second point is community ontologies, shared data in the semantic web. You need to have communities sharing the vision on the data, otherwise you do not have fair data. Second slide, please. But to come back to historians and to the usual work of working, we start as historians with outlining a research agenda. We have questions, we go to the documents, we read them, we extract information, and in the analogic world, then you are on the left, you interpret, publish, finished. This is the usual way of producing knowledge in history. But if you add the data now, if you are in the digital world, it gets a lot more complicated, because you need to produce data, so you need semantic engineering. If you reuse data, you have to understand the model of the other data. Does it suit to my research agenda or not? So you need to re-wrangle the data. You have to have data engineering. You have to work with this data. Probably for colleagues in other disciplines, this is already something quite usual, but in history and in digital humanities, it's not. Then you want to analyze this, and this needs skills in data analytics and so on. And then first you can do something new, take new knowledge out of all of this. So the whole conception of science, production of knowledge, changes in the digital world. And it's impossible for historians to do this as they are now. It's a long way we have to go. And I come back to my 4 themes. First point, you need skills. You need new skills, because you must be at the same time semantic engineer, data engineering, data analytics. So that's already something very difficult for a normally trained historian in classical way. Secondly, you cannot do this without a team, of course, because you need to have the people doing this for you, teaching you, doing this for you, and so on. In history, everyone is working from himself or herself, and here you need collaboration. Then you need the communities for the semantics, you need ontologies, you need sharing conceptualizations and so on, which is the next step, which is quite difficult. And then you need infrastructure, you need virtual research environment, you need places where you can put the data, work on, and they are still there in 10 years, otherwise you're lost. And so the big issue, you spoke all about that, and this is our issue, how do you reward all this work? Because this cannot be done by other people. This must be done by historians because they know, and of course, other people helping them. But I'm spending time in team management, infrastructure building, semantics, and so on. I'm not publishing on history, of course. I'm publishing on other things or not publishing because working on all this. So how can you, if you want to have open science, this new science, how can you reward this so that people engage in this process? This is my question.
Thank you so much, Francesco. That was a very nice perspective also from the digital humanities side. And I think nowadays we can't really draw lines on the lines of research. We are all moving towards multidisciplinary research. So we have to work on this. And it's good that you've mentioned about collaboration, teamwork, and infrastructure. So I think our final speaker is very apt in answering those questions as well. I would like to introduce Dr. Emma Lazzeri to give her perspective in the European and Italian infrastructure and policies. Emma.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sorry, I had my mic muted.
That's all right.
Thank you so much, Shalini, for inviting me to this event, and thank you to all of you for being present. I will introduce myself. I'm in my previous life, I was a researcher in photonic technology field. I've been there for 10 years, and then suddenly I changed my work, and now I am a researcher and an open science manager at CNR. I have a lot of different hats. I'm involved in the European Commission Open Science Monitor Advisory Group, and I am member of several other task force and working group at European level and national level. I'm involved in several also infrastructure working in open science. The most important one are Open Air that you may already know, and RDA, the Research Data Alliance. Next slide, please, Shalini. So what I would like to point out today is what are the actions that are being taken in Europe and Italy towards a new evaluation system for research. Well, we have some anticipation from the next Horizon Europe funding program. They will consider open science as a modus operandi, so we are well we are not in a pilot phase anymore. The European Commission, as you may know, started the path towards open science in 2007. So long years have passed now, and now open science will be considered as the modus operandi, as said. So Horizon Europe is working towards the use of appropriate metrics for better assessing the impact of research output. We have seen in the previous presentation, they will try to assess not only publication, but all the outputs and the engagement in open science. And this will be used both to evaluate and review projects output. This is quite important, and the European Commission has also made some very important steps in the past months. They also realized what it is called the ORE, so the Open Research Europe publishing platform, where researchers that are funded by the European Commission can freely publish their work. This will include also an open peer review, so this will be also included in the rewards and evaluation system. I want also to point out that at European level, there is now a very large debate within the European University Association that is working since many years towards a new research assessment in the open science era. And also I would like to stress that EOSC is coming, and in the strategic research and innovation agenda that the executive board of IOSC is drafting, we also find some points about evaluation and promotion criteria for open science and fair practices. But what happens at national level? Well, I'm happy to say that, as many of you may know, the National Research Plan was released in August and contained the National Open Science Plan. This plan was drafted by a team of experts. CNR was involved and OpenAir was involved in this. And they state that they will recognize researchers' contribution to fair data, and also they would like to overcome the current evaluation system, which is based on commercial-based bibliometric indexes, as you may all know, and they would like to promote open science practices. Now, this is a news of the last weeks. We have been called by the ministry to include the comments of the open consultation of the National Research Plan that happened in August and September. So one of our team members will be part of the working group that will draft the final version of the National Open Science Plan. So these points will be included in the plan. So big news to come in the next months. I also, the last thing that I would like to say is that Shalini and Federica and I are part of the task force within the ICDI, the Italian Computing and Data Infrastructure Forum, and we are building a national IOSC competence center. Now this links to what the former speaker was telling about the fact that we need to train researchers about open science practices and skills. So this competence center will have the aim to train those people and support them in open science practices. So you will not be alone in this progress. And one the last important thing that I would like to stress here is that research community must be involved to have their say about how they would like the new evaluation system to be. This is because each community has its own perspective, and so that's why we need to have their say to change the system. Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emma. I think it was a very nice conclusion also to the speakers in terms of solutions what the policymakers are up to. So what I will do right now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. If you obviously, if you have any questions or comments about this event, please feel free to reach us. I will be sharing the slides to all the participants as well. And you have all these wonderful links shared by our speakers. So just to, let's say, summarize what we talked about, despite the fact that we all came from very different perspectives and different backgrounds, all of us recognize that there is a need for reproducible research. There are new skills to be acquired. We need to recognize teamwork and not just the individual, and we need to overhaul the system of awards and evaluation. And we seem to have found a common ground. So what I will ask the audiences would be that if you would like to pose your questions, please do so in the chat. But I think, and if not, I also have many questions on to the panelists. But I think we have one question from Mario Locati asking, do we have a draft version of the Piano Nazionale per la Scienza Aperta? Emma, I think that's your
Yes, so there was a short version that was released. You have seen in my slides, I put a screenshot of some of the pages of this plan that was released. During the consultation, the public consultation that was open until the beginning of September, the ministry released this short version that was openly available. Unfortunately, now it's not not anymore. The full plan is still an internal document, but the plan will be revised and released soon as this working group will meet and include the comments that we received thanks to the open consultation. So if you want, what I can do is that I can share the short version that was shared by the ministry. This was unfortunately an attachment to the open consultation. So now that the page is closed, it's not anymore available, but I can share it with you. If you want to send me an email, I have a copy of it. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Actually, while waiting for the other questions from the audience, I actually have one question for all the panelists, because we spoke about the problems in the evaluation systems and some solutions, partly coming from researchers, partly coming from communities, from funders, from the policymakers. But there was a common theme that there needs to be a change in not just the skills, but also the mindset of people. So we need to change the mindset of researchers and the people who review the funding proposals, the people who review the papers. So in your opinion, can you give some your solutions, or what you think can be tangible solutions towards this mindset change? Whoever wants to volunteer to start may do so among the panelists.
I can say a few things we have been doing in the HRB and what I noticed. So we started in 2016, and we, especially for the FAIR principle, the data management practices, and very much talking about the value of research data and not just moving away about the article, because the article is very much the interpretation of the data at the end. So the first impression is people, researchers don't have the time, they don't want to engage, they think it's not for them, it's too much work to do these new practices, to follow, and they think they need to become expert yet again in something else. So it takes time. So what we have been doing from funding perspective is build awareness. So we've been doing workshop, discussion. We start with a carrot and not the stick. So we start to ask questions in the application form for proposal for funding, but without evaluating them. It's just to build, so to prompt people to start thinking about this. We start promoting, so we gave some literature, some links, and we know that they don't have the time. So they think the usual responses like HRB is taking more money from us now for data management, the HRB now wants more paperwork, but actually what we're trying to do is to increase the value of the research data, and the mindset the change of the mindset take long time. For example, more early career researchers, I'm not talking about younger researchers, early career researcher sometimes think that is their supervisor, they don't want to share the data, or they don't want to follow this new practice, but they have a role as well to play in terms of actively engage with the supervisor or the mentor or more senior researcher, and trying to change that culture as well. Or because sometimes the senior researcher might not necessarily are against the new practice, they probably don't have the time to do it. So there is everybody, what I want to say is everybody has a role to play, and we have to do together, and it is slow. In some countries like the Netherlands are much more advanced. They have a national plan for several years. There are people that are actively doing that in terms of in practice doing action. But in other countries we're following, and what Italy can probably do, what HRB has been doing, because Ireland is trying to do, because we are starting also later, is to avoid mistakes and probably move forward quickly. Looking what international good practice is.
So if I can add
Yeah,
one
absolutely,
thing
Gianluca, please.
on building on this? I mean, I really much appreciate the way in which you are structuring the application form for your grant, Annalisa. I think this is a wonderful thing to have. I would love this would be done at European level for other grants. I mean, if they could do this at RC grant level, I think this would be a big change in the positive direction. With respect to what Italy could do, one of the things that possibly also Federica wanted to mention is the fact that in the official application forms for hiring and for promotion, already mentioning that these artifacts exist as primary research products as Article R. I mean, data, code at least, but even open hardware or anything we can think of that could be evaluated is already a big cultural shift, because so far these are completely invisible, and this would be an important first step. And anything that moves in the right direction is already a good thing. I mean, I don't think that we can shift the culture overnight. It's absolutely a long process. It will be a difficult one. And we need to start from where we can start. But I mean, also from a perspective of Italy, already starting thinking that, you know, all the metrics that we use for hiring are not mandatory anymore, and would be already a very good shift towards the direction that you release the pressure a little bit in terms of the number of paper you may have, and you may devote time to something else that your institution ensure you is going to be rewarded and counted for your career progression. Otherwise, I mean, we are doomed to fail if we don't address this small thing first. Sorry, I stop here.
So, Yasemin, would you like to add that, you know, changing the culture shift also in the Netherlands was not very easy, right?
No, it was not easy, and I really, of course, recognize everything that has been said, and I completely agree with my panelists. What is important is that founders and organizations have an important role in here. And when we started, it also wasn't easy. So what I want to say is that there are, of course, many factors here. So you need to have it from the funder side, you need to have it from the organization side, you need to have the infrastructure so that researchers can apply actually these practices. But in the end, you also have the human capital, which is like roles like mine. So in our case, in the very beginning, it was creating a lot of awareness. But I'm really glad to say that we are actually moving now towards being more operational, so that we did manage to start with the cultural change. Now people are really seeing the value of it. In the very beginning, it was really different, but it's so nice to see that we are getting there. They really see the value of it. And we are also expanding with this, so that we started with data stewards, but this year also we have data managers that joined us. We also have research software engineers that joined us, so that we can support our researchers, and that they also see that it is not only on their shoulders. There are professionals here that they will support them along the way. And similarly, we have the community, and then that also the bottom-up community, and that helps also for us to see, okay, what are their needs, how we can support them. So they're in the driver's seat. That was also development of the policies so far, but then how we can support them. But of course, I understand it is not very easy for every organization to have this, but it is always good to start somewhere. And that's really nice to also have this type of discussions, so that will help us, help others also, and help all of us to start somewhere.
So, Francesco, do you want to add something on from your area of research?
I can just say I'm so happy to hear all what you say, because on the one side, we must know we have real problems in evaluation, and this means you cannot practice new methodologies in science. This is how, from my perspective, what you say is in this sense very important. And I hope humanities will also get there, because we are light years behind all the scientific disciplines, and this is very very bad, I think, for humanities, because we already have a problem of legitimizing the funding we receive and so on. And you know, the point I try to stress on my side is teaching. In teaching, you said already this, yes, but it's very important that we go on, we move on teaching and bringing these skills to the students. And also one, I think, really important thing is to understand you cannot be alone as a scientist. The problem is the individualistic approach that we have in science. I was very interested in hearing all your contributions, especially that of Ireland, and so how you create communities. Because if you do not have a community, if you are alone, you will still go on with this individualistic approach, and this is blocking. We need science open science comes from communities, and we need to live in communities. It's fun also because you learn from other people, you improve your own skills with discussion, and so let's collaborate, let's move on. Thank you for being here and hearing all what you say.
Yeah, probably we'll have two more comments. I think we have a remark saying that already if changing mindset in hard sciences, the so-called hard sciences, is difficult, that in humanities it's even more difficult. People are completely disinterested in the topic. What do we have to do about this is what Ludovica is asking. Probably Francesco, if you have a say about it, I would like to conclude it also by asking the supervisor perspective on Federica in the end.
I'm trying to do it, but it's very difficult. But there are a lot of initiatives. So I think the important thing is what you say, that at European level and national level, these initiatives are rewarded because there are data journals which are developed now also in humanities, and all. Just please, from your perspective, from the top, see what is on the bottom, because the bottom often doesn't even know that this exists, and help us. Well, this is the only thing I can say. And thank you very much for what you do, and I learned this morning.
Thank you so much. And just as a final remark, I would like to ask Federica, you are also supervising students, and what would, as a supervisor, what would be your advice for early career researchers in this topic? And we can summarize this session after that.
Yeah, I mean, I continuously, let's say, try to push my students to learn about these practices. And however, these, let's say, I'm totally understand what and agree with Francesco. So we need to act as institutions, as education institutions, from my point of view, already from the undergraduate levels, because today, whatever is your discipline, history, sociology, everything, you cannot, let's say, live as a person, a full person, apart from the professional even world, if you do not have a basic set of digital skills. So already at the undergraduate level, for any kind of disciplines, I think that it is crucial to work a lot with the PhD students, because we have to change seniors researchers, or however, let's say researchers already, let's say, with some years of experience with the funding, with the incentives and so on. But we need also to push a lot from the bottom. And here PhD students are important, and they are very responsive. So what we have also to be, let's say, to take care is that then senior researchers do not jeopardize somehow what instead can be the change which is pushed by young researchers. So it is essential. And in this sense, I mean, this panel was, I thank Shalini to organize, let's say, this sort of panel, because we have put together all the different players that can, that need to, let's say, somehow make a synergy. Otherwise, it will not work. So I think education is really a very important point at all levels. If I make just a comment, for example, what Gianluca is telling about considering artifacts as a primary research product is fantastic. But today, when we talk to the governance, it is already difficult to convince them that maybe a publication with some artifact together is more valuable than just a publication, just a PDF. To mean that this cultural change is, however, let's say, a tough job that must be, let's say, done on moving really on all the aspects that we can cover.
Thank you so much, Federica. We've also got a couple of comments agreeing with your remarks about the education, about different levels of study. So I think our time is coming to the end, and thank you everybody, both the speakers especially and the participants who took their time to talk about this important topic. I don't think this is the end of the discussion. It's a start. We also need to start. And we have a lot of common points. We agree on a lot of things. We might disagree on definitions or how to do things, but we know that this problem exists and we should move forward from all angles. And that's why this this diverse panel was very, very useful to bring the discussion. And I hope we keep in touch, keep having these conversations. And thank you once again. And we'll be in touch with the slides and the recordings with you. Have a great afternoon and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you to all.
Bye.
Thank you.